Welcome to another episode of Murky Paintwater, the series in which I tell you about a true crime case while painting. Today, we will be discussing the case of Tracey Richter. So get out your art supplies or cup of tea, and let's jump into it. On the night of December 31st, 2001, a 911 call was made. It was 11-year-old Bert. He told the dispatcher that intruders came into the house, had attacked his mom, Tracey, and Tracey had shot one of them. The intruder had died because of it. The other intruder had run off. Doesn't that just strike you as one of the worst things to happen? Like intruders coming into your house in an attempt to, take your life or your mom's life? Sounds pretty bad to me. So you can hardly blame poor Tracey for standing up to them in her moment of panic and defending her children. If anything, we should consider her courage to defend herself heroic. So that's why the media and the neighborhood heard of this story, and they called Tracey a local hero, and her actions were celebrated. While the town of Early in Iowa was celebrating Tracey, police were looking into the events that happened at Tracey's house that night, as is pretty standard in such cases. They were, of course, very curious to know who these intruders were and what their motives might have been for breaking into Tracey's house. First, let me tell you a bit about Tracey. Tracey Richter lived in Early, Iowa, with her husband Michael Roberts and their 3 kids. Well, her oldest son, Bert, she had actually in a previous marriage with Dr. John Pittman, and the 2 younger children she did share with Michael. Now, at the time of this attack, Michael happened to be out of town. So why would anyone want to hurt this lovely family? And was it a coincidence that Michael was out of town? Well, let's discuss what the police found during their investigation. At the scene, the detectives identified the deceased intruder as Dustin Weedy. Now, Dustin lived in the same neighborhood as Tracey. They found he had been shot 9 times with a pair of handguns from Tracey's home safe. So, a pair of handguns, that is. Not 1 handgun, 2 handguns were used. They didn't find a single trace from that second intruder, though. Dustin was known around town as a bit of a geeky guy that was a little somber at times, and he lived in his parents' basement. He was pretty timid and mostly kept to himself. He had, however, been in pretty good contact with Tracey and Michael. He would sometimes attend church with them and come over to their house. He also had no criminal record. So all of these facts put together didn't really make him a kind of person to commit crimes where he would be breaking into homes and confronting the residents by assaulting them. Just didn't really seem to fit him and his personality. Now, combined with the fact that Dustin had parked his car in Tracey's driveway, detectives started to have some doubts about Tracey's story. They take a look at Dustin's car and find a pink notebook on the front seat. When they open it up, it contains writing that said that a mysterious fellow named John Pittman had hired him being Dustin, to kill Tracey and her 11-year-old son, Bert. John Pittman is actually an ex-husband of Tracey's. And so the plot thickens. At this point, it is a good time to tell you that John and Tracey were not on the best of terms. They got married in 1988, but their relationship quickly worsened. John suspected Tracey of stealing from his parents and found out that Tracey was also having multiple affairs. Close to the end of their marriage, Tracey actually put out a gun on John and threatened to kill him. They started their divorce proceedings just 4 years after getting married. During the proceedings, Tracey accused John of sexually abusing their son, Bert. John denied this, and a judge ruled that there was no evidence to support Tracey's claims. They officially got divorced in 1996. Of course, the divorce was not the end of it, since they also shared a son. They would continue fighting each other in the form of a custody battle. Now, during that whole custody battle thing still going on, Tracey didn't just sit there and worry about that custody battle. She actually met Michael during that time. You know, Michael, which we mentioned earlier, her husband now during this attack. So Tracey met Michael and actually got married to him. They had 2 children of their own. Well, Michael did find out at the beginning of their marriage that Tracey was cheating on him. He still wanted to stick it out and make it work and continue to have these 2 children with her. Their relationship, too, was deteriorating fast, resulting into fights that turned physical, and Tracey actually trying to kill Michael twice, according to Michael. So around that time, when their relationship just between Michael and Tracey was not going great, the custody battle that Tracey had with John was also at an all-time low, with Tracey accusing John again of abusing their son, Bert. Now, mind you, that 2001 was also when this attack happened. Okay, so after that little snippet of useful background info, let's get back to the investigation of Dustin's car and the pink notebook. It did look like the passage about this mysterious man, John, was actually written by Dustin because it was in his handwriting. Now, the detectives were keen from that point on to figure out if those 2 men had been in contact, even if they knew each other at all. They found nothing. Dustin and John did not know each other. Plus, our guy Dustin here, he doesn't really fit the profile of a professional hitman at all. Not by character, but also, if you are a professional hitman, I don't think you should be taking jobs to off people that live nearby or that you know, unless you really want to get caught really badly. Now, luckily for John Pittman, the police immediately don't buy this, so they never consider John to be a suspect in this kill-for-hire case. The crime scene looked fishy, Dustin didn't fit the profile of a person who would do this, and the link between Dustin and John was non-existent. So while the police were clearly on the "we don't believe Tracey's story" team, the prosecutor of Sac County decided not to bring charges against Tracey, and the case went into the books as a self-defense homicide, leaving Dustin's parents with a deceased son and no real explanation as to what happened. Dustin's mother, Mona, she did, however, file a wrongful death lawsuit against Tracey. Mona's attorney found several inconsistencies in Tracey's stories. Tracey first claimed to have recognized Dustin, and then later continued to deny that. She's said to have shot from one position and later changing it to another position. Now, the lawsuit was eventually dropped in 2005 because investigators were worried that this lawsuit might interfere with their case against Tracey. So they still weren't buying it and they still wanted it before a judge, but maybe they didn't have enough evidence or didn't really know how to proceed from that point on. So the wrongful death lawsuit was actually dropped. Now Tracey, meanwhile, she chose to appear on talk show, to share her story, highlighting that she had no choice but to shoot Dustin to protect her kids and herself. So as far as the world knew, Tracey was an all-American hero, defending herself, her kids, and her property. God bless America. Now, remember that Tracey shares her 2 youngest children with husband Michael Roberts. So their relationship was rocky in 2001. Michael actually filed for divorce by 2004. He was not having it anymore. Now, all of a sudden, Tracey, she went back to the police to let them know that actually Michael Roberts had also been involved in John's conspiracy to get her killed. She never mentioned anything before then. I guess it must have slipped her mind in all of the hubbub until 2004 or something. As much as I think it's odd for her to implicate Michael years after the fact, so did the police. They never really took it serious and never viewed Michael as a serious suspect in this case. After the divorce, Tracey and her kids moved to Omaha, Nebraska. Tracey wanted to get away from the whole Iowa thing. She was just feeling Nebraska. Tracey changed her whole identity when they moved. She even took on another name, Sophie Edwards, apparently. Don't really know why she wanted that, because she was painted a hero before, but apparently we are going with Sophie Edwards from that point on. I'm still going to call her Tracey, though. Then something happened that was much needed in this case. A new prosecutor took office in Sac County. It was 2010 by then, and this prosecutor, Ben Smith, had actually campaigned for the job by promising that he would investigate the almost 10-year-old case if he was to take office. Ben was true to his word and revitalized the investigation into this case, focusing on the homicide of Dustin. The theory was that Tracey had lured Dustin into the home and getting him to write in the pink notebook, basically using Dustin as nothing more than a pawn in her scheme to frame her ex-husband, John, for a kill for hire. As a part of the investigation by Ben Smith, forensic ballistic experts determined that of the 9 shots Dustin had received, 3 were fired into the back of his head while Dustin had already been laying down on Tracey's bedroom floor. Now, that evidence was incompatible with Tracey saying that she had acted in self-defense. If somebody's laying on the floor face down, it's hardly self-defense, is it, Tracey? Furthermore, they found inconsistencies in Tracey's story, like she said that only one intruder ran off, while later stating that both men had tried to run. She gave detectives a description of the second intruder's face, while earlier she had stated that he had been wearing a ski mask. Tracey claimed her glasses had been knocked off, but she managed to shoot Dustin with perfect accuracy. And the injuries in Tracey's neck didn't match being choked with a pair of pantyhose, as she was telling people had happened. Now, all of this was suspicious, all right, but they needed something to tie it all together to make sure they would be able to convince a jury of Tracey's guilt. Now, the one thing the police had never spoken about to anyone was the pink notebook found in Dustin's car. There was information about John Pittman in that notebook that Dustin had no way of knowing. If they could show Tracey knew about the notebook, they could prove she had a bigger part in what happened than she was letting on, because there would be no way for her to know that there was a notebook in Dustin's car. Now, when they found out Tracey's friend, Mary Higgins, who was nowhere near the attack, knew about the pink notebook, they knew Tracey was guilty. Higgins even stated that Tracey had later told her to forget about the pink notebook. Tracey was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole on November 5th, 2011. You think it ends there, but no. From prison, she began writing letters with a convicted child rapist called Jim Landa. In one of those letters she sent, there was a lot of information about her ex-husband, Michael Roberts. Basically, all the information a person would need to locate him. But as he had custody of their children, Jim could now also find their 2 children. And Tracey was apparently hinting, well, if something were to happen. Yeah. She also did her best to destroy the reputation of those who, in her eyes, wronged her, filing complaints about them on public websites and them needing to pay to take it down and prove that it was false accusations, basically making their lives miserable. Now, I do want to mention that there is a small movement claiming Tracey has been wrongfully convicted. The movement is led by her son Bert, who she seems to have an enormous amount of control over and is also kind of using him as a pawn to gather information about her ex-husbands and, really fight her fight while she's in prison. Michael has luckily gotten full custody of their 2 children, and after some legal hiccups with the courts wanting Tracey to still have her visitation rights after all this with those kids, yeah, I know, don't ask me, Michael has finally been able to move to Australia with his children and get very far away from Tracey. Now, when you hear him talk about his relationship with Tracey in an interview he did, chills run down your spine because you realize that Tracey had been trying to kill Michael by drugging him and manipulating him. So she was trying to ruin John's life. She was trying to kill Michael. There's no stopping this woman. All in all, I think Tracey is in the right place right now, and my thoughts go out to all her victims. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and let me know what you think about this case or painting in the comments. If you would like to see more true crime and painting, might I suggest clicking the subscribe button on my channel so you'll be the first to know when I post new content. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!